I never thought I'd end up with someone like Daniel. I mean, when Ashley first introduced us at her backyard barbecue, I almost laughed. Like, actually laughed out loud. Here I was in my cute sundress and wedges that made my legs look amazing, and this short guy in thick-rimmed glasses walks up to me. I'm Lizzie, 29, living my best life in Scottsdale, Arizona, and honey, let me tell you how I ended up married to probably the only guy under 5'8" in the entire Phoenix metro area. So there I was, holding my mimosa, pretending to be interested in whatever Ashley's husband was grilling, when she practically ambushes me. Lizzie, come meet Daniel. She had this look on her face like she was doing me some huge favor. I should have known right then she was up to something. Daniel was... well, there's no sugarcoating it. He was 5'7" on a good day, with this receding hairline that he tried to hide with an expensive haircut. Spoiler, it wasn't working. He had these thick glasses that made his eyes look weird, and the kind of body that screams, I haven't seen the inside of a gym since high school. But then he started talking about his latest development project. He's a construction project manager for these luxury developments, and I noticed his watch. Rolex. Not one of those obvious fake ones you see guys flexing at the clubs. I won't lie, I was ready to make an excuse and walk away until he mentioned he just closed a deal on a new high-rise downtown. The way he talked about it, so confident despite literally having to look up at me, I'm 5'8" without heels, it was interesting. Not attractive, exactly, but interesting. Ashley texted me later that night. He's super successful, just saying. Followed by about $50 sign emojis. And okay. Maybe I was getting tired of the dating scene. All these hot guys with their perfect abs and height, but living in apartments with 3 roommates or trying to make it as entrepreneurs, selling protein shakes on Instagram. Our first date was at this super exclusive restaurant downtown. Daniel didn't just get us a reservation. He knew the owner. Watching him order wine, knowing exactly what to pick, how he just casually handed over his black card at the end of the night, it made up for having to carefully arrange our selfie so you couldn't tell he was shorter than me. I showed the pictures to my girls at our weekly wine night. Madison zoomed in on his face and almost spit out her Chardonnay. Girl, are you serious? He looks like my accountant. But then Kylie grabbed her phone and Googled him. Shut up. He's that Daniel? The one building the new luxury complex? Suddenly, everyone had opinions. I mean, you're not getting any younger. Think about the future. My cousin married for love, and now she's living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids. The courtship was fast. Like, really fast. Daniel took me shopping at stores where I used to pretend I was just browsing. Brought me to charity galas where everyone knew him. Introduced me to people who could drop tens of thousands on art, like I drop money at Target. Sure, every time we took pictures, I had to perfect the art of strategic posing. And yeah, maybe I didn't get that flutter in my stomach when he kissed me. But when he proposed after just 10 months with this massive diamond ring, what was I supposed to say? Now? The wedding was, well, it was everything I could afford, not everything I wanted. Daniel kept talking about fiscal responsibility and saving for our future. But he made up for it by surprising me with a new Range Rover as a wedding gift. My friends were divided. In the ceremony pictures, they arranged themselves so the height difference wasn't too obvious. In our group chat, though? Different story. At least you'll be able to afford good schools if the kids get his height. Girl, you're securing the bag. Who cares if you have to bend down to kiss him? Does he at least, make up for it in other ways? I quit my boutique job right after the honeymoon. Daniel said he wanted me to be able to focus on starting our family, and honestly, folding overpriced yoga pants while pretending to care about entitled customers' problems was getting old. Within 2 years, we had Emma and Lucas, and I had everything I thought I wanted. The big house in the right neighborhood, the designer bags, the ability to actually buy organic at Whole Foods instead of just taking pictures of the produce and buying the regular stuff at Walmart. But then things started shifting. My friends would come over for wine nights, and I'd catch them exchanging looks when Daniel would come home from work. He'd try to reach something from the top shelf in the kitchen, and I'd hear their muffled giggles. Our group chat turned into a constant stream of memes about Short King Spring and TikToks about married for money confessions. Girl, you're living the life, but I could never. You're stronger than me. And the worst part? They weren't wrong. Every time we went out as couples, it was impossible not to notice. All their husbands, tall and broad-shouldered, making Daniel look like he should be sitting at the kids' table. In every group photo, it looked like some kind of optical illusion. Me, this tall, blonde, still got it after 2 kids trophy wife next to him. I started wondering if I'd made a mistake. If I'd settled too early, too afraid of ending up alone. Then Ashley's cousin Darius started showing up at our gatherings. 6'2", body like a Greek god, the kind of jaw that could cut glass. He was everything Daniel wasn't. Physically, at least. Sure, he was just a personal trainer living in a rented condo, but every time he walked into a room, heads turned. When Daniel walked into a room, people just looked slightly down. That's when the comments from my friends started getting more pointed. The group chat became a constant stream of comparisons. Imagine if you'd waited. You know, it's never too late. Money's great, but don't you miss being actually attracted to your husband? And the thing is, they weren't wrong. I had everything I thought I wanted. The lifestyle, the security, the picture-perfect family. Everything except butterflies in my stomach when my husband walked into a room. Everything except the ability to post a couple's pic without carefully calculating angles. Everything except actual attraction to the father of my children. Looking back now, I should have seen where this was all heading. But in that first year of marriage, posting my blessed captions and living my best life stories, I really thought I could make it work. I really thought the designer bags would make up for having to look down to kiss my husband. I really thought I was smart enough, practical enough, to choose stability over attraction. Spoiler alert, I wasn't. 3 years into playing happy housewife, I started really noticing things, like how our couple's photos never quite hit right when I posted them. There was always something off, and it wasn't just the filters. Madison would post these perfect family beach pictures with her husband Chad, lifting their kids up, looking all athletic and tall. Ashley's man would be in his tailored suits, towering over her in their date night posts. And there I was, constantly trying to figure out how to pose so Daniel didn't look like my little brother. Our mommy wine nights became my escape. We'd all get together while our husbands were either working late or watching the kids, phones out, scrolling through our feeds, and really talking. Like, really talking. Did you see that new trainer at Equinox? Madison would show us these thirst trap reels of these gorgeous guys doing workouts. Now that's what a man should look like. I'd be 3 glasses of white wine in, and the truth would just spill out. Daniel tried to hug me from behind this morning, and his face was literally in my shoulder blades. They'd howl with laughter, and I didn't even feel bad about it. It felt good to finally be honest. Everything changed when Darius started coming around more. Ashley had invited him to join our weekend brunches since he'd broken up with his girlfriend. The first time he walked in wearing this fitted Henley that showed off every muscle, I literally choked on my mimosa. He was everything Daniel wasn't. Tall, obviously, but also just magnetic. When he talked about his modeling side gigs or demonstrated proper squat form, after Kylie begged him to, of course, I couldn't help but compare. Daniel would come home from work, his dress shirt slightly rumpled, that little belly pushing against the buttons, and I'd think about how Darius looked in his workout gear. When Daniel would stretch to reach the good wine glasses from the top cabinet, I'd remember how Darius casually grabbed them without even fully extending his arm. It was torture. The group chat became our confessional booth. Girl, did you see how Darius filled out those jeans today? Lizzie, he was totally checking you out during mimosas. Must be nice having some eye candy around instead of, you know. I started finding reasons to work out when I knew Darius would be at the gym. Trading in my old leggings for these cute matching sets that made my assets look amazing. Daniel actually encouraged it. I'm glad you're focusing on your health, honey. If he only knew I was focusing on watching Darius do deadlifts in the mirror. Our couples game nights got more awkward. I'd position myself near Darius, laughing at all his jokes, touching his arm when he'd say something funny. When he'd mention his latest modeling gig, I'd gush over it while Daniel sat there in his dad jeans and those awful glasses, trying to join the conversation with some boring story about his latest project. My friends noticed, of course. They'd text me during the games, "He's totally into you. The chemistry is insane. Better genes for baby number 3, just saying." I started dreading intimacy with Daniel. How could I not compare? He'd try to initiate, and all I could think about was how his body felt nothing like the guys I saw at the gym. How he had to practically climb up to kiss me in heels. I started making excuses. Headaches, period, too tired from the kids. The truth was, I just couldn't get past it anymore. The worst part was, Daniel was actually doing well, like, really well. He got promoted to regional director, which meant more money, bigger house, better everything. But it also meant more corporate events where I had to stand next to him, pretending I wasn't dying inside, every time someone looked at us with that mix of confusion and pity in their eyes. One night, after too many glasses of wine, Madison said what everyone was thinking. "You know, you could have both. The money and the attraction. Plenty of successful men out there who don't need a step stool to kiss their wives." I knew she was right. I'd see these couples at Daniel's work events, the executives with their trophy wives, everyone matching in height and attractiveness. Meanwhile, I was there looking like I'd lost a bet. Every time we had to take a company photo, I wanted to die. The photographer would always try to arrange us creatively to hide the height difference, but you can only do so much. The girls started sending me dating coach reels about knowing your worth and leveling up. Posts about how settling only leads to resentment. And they weren't wrong. I was resenting everything about Daniel. How his ties never quite looked right because of his neck, how his expensive suits couldn't hide his body type, how he'd get winded playing with the kids in the backyard while Darius was out there running marathons. I started wondering what my life would have been like if I'd waited. If I hadn't been so practical, so focused on security. Maybe I could have found someone with both, the success and the looks. Someone I wouldn't have to edit myself smaller next to in photos. Someone who could make me feel like a delicate flower instead of an Amazon warrior. The breaking point was coming. I could feel it building every time Daniel would reach for me, and I'd flinch. Every time I'd see Darius at our gatherings and feel that spark I'd never felt with my husband. Every time my friends would send another "don't settle" quote to our group chat. I was living this perfect life on paper, but inside, I was dying of embarrassment every time we went out in public. Looking back, I guess I was setting us both up for what happened next. But in the moment, all I could think about was how I'd trapped myself in this cage of financial security with a man I couldn't even post on my main Instagram feed without feeling embarrassed. And after enough wine nights, enough thirst trap reels, enough comparing my life to what it could have been, something had to give. That something started with our Tuesday morning mommy meetups. We'd all gather at Ashley's house while our kids played in her custom-built playground, complete with a full-time nanny watching them, of course. That's when the real talk would start. "I'm just worried about Emma, you know," Madison said one morning, stirring her coffee. "Kids can be so cruel. What if she gets teased about having a short dad?" "Oh my God, I was literally thinking the same thing," Kylie chimed in. "Like, what if Lucas inherits his height? You're basically setting your son up for a lifetime of bullying." They weren't saying anything I hadn't thought about at 3 a.m. while scrolling through TikToks about genetic inheritance. I'd catch myself studying my kids' growth charts at their checkups, praying they'd somehow magically inherit height from my side of the family. Daniel would be in his home office during these meetups, on his endless Zoom calls about development projects. Sometimes he'd come down for coffee and the room would go quiet except for these little suppressed giggles. He had to know we were talking about him. How could he not? One time he came down wearing this new suit he'd bought, expensive, custom-tailored, the works. But all I could see was how it somehow made him look even shorter, like a kid playing dress-up in his dad's clothes, but backward. "Nice suit, Daniel," Ashley called out, then turned to whisper to me once he left. "He kind of looks like those little guys who stand on wedding cakes, doesn't he?" I shouldn't have laughed. I really shouldn't have. But I did, and once I started, I couldn't stop. Oh my God, he does! I'm never going to unsee that now. The jokes got meaner after that. Every time he'd try to kiss me goodbye in front of my friends, they'd make these little comments. Aw, look at him on his tippy toes. Lizzie, bend down, he can't reach. It's like Snow White and one of her dwarfs. And the worst part? I started joining in. It was easier than defending him. Easier than admitting I'd chosen this. Easier than acknowledging that I'd picked financial security over physical attraction. Our intimacy basically died. How could I get in the mood when all I could think about was my friends' jokes? When all I could see were the flaws they pointed out? His thinning hair, his doughy middle, his height. God, especially his height. Every time he touched me, I'd think about how Darius's hands probably felt on his clients when he was adjusting their form. The group chat became brutal. Saw this and thought of Daniel, followed by memes about garden gnomes. Does he shop in the boys section? Asking for a friend. Remember when Lizzie used to date that basketball player? Upgrade, downgrade, check. I should have shut it down, should have defended my husband, the father of my children. Instead, I started contributing. Just had to put away his dry cleaning in the children's closet because it fits better there. Asked him to get something from the top shelf, and I swear he grew a gray hair from the stress. Caught him using Emma's step stool in the bathroom this morning. Darius was still around, making everything worse just by existing. He'd come to our weekend barbecues looking like he'd stepped out of a men's fitness magazine. Daniel would be there in his casual clothes, which meant ill-fitting khakis and those awful loafers, trying to talk to him about sports or whatever, and the contrast was physically painful to watch. One Saturday, Darius was helping set up for a pool party, moving furniture around like it was nothing. Daniel offered to help and could barely lift one chair. I saw my friends exchanging looks, and I wanted to sink into the ground. Later, Darius took his shirt off to swim with the kids, and I literally heard Madison whisper, "Girl, you messed up." The thing is, she was right. I had messed up. Not by marrying Daniel. That was a smart decision, technically speaking. I messed up by thinking I could force attraction. By thinking I could ignore the physical and focus on the practical. By believing that a Range Rover and a platinum card could make up for having to look down to kiss my husband. I started drinking more at our social gatherings. It was the only way to handle the embarrassment. Wine made it easier to laugh at the jokes, to join in when my friends would make comments about trading up or upgrading to the tall model. It made it easier to flirt with Darius, to stand too close to him at parties, to laugh too hard at his jokes while Daniel watched from across the room. The kids started picking up on it too. Emma came home from school one day, asking why her friend's daddy was so much bigger than hers. Lucas started standing on his tiptoes in photos. I should have been horrified, should have put a stop to it all. Instead, I found myself making excuses about how daddy's just special while exchanging knowing looks with my friends. I was heading for disaster. Everyone could see it, even Daniel. Though he kept quiet about it all. He just worked more, stayed in his office longer, probably thinking if he made enough money, if he bought me enough things, if he provided an even more luxurious lifestyle, somehow it would make up for what he couldn't change. But no amount of money could change the fact that every time I looked at him, all I could see were the flaws. All I could hear were my friends' jokes. All I could think about was how I'd settled, how I'd traded passion for practicality, how I'd chosen financial security over physical attraction. And then came the company Christmas party. I started drinking early that day. The girls came over to help me get ready, bringing champagne and their usual commentary. "At least you can wear your highest heels since Daniel won't be in any of the photos anyway," Madison said, helping me zip up my dress. "Girl, please tell me Darius is coming," Kylie added, already 3 mimosas deep. "Someone needs to give these corporate wives something to look at." By the time we got to the venue, some fancy resort in North Scottsdale, I was already buzzing. Daniel had hired a driver, probably knowing I'd drink. He was always thoughtful like that, which somehow made it worse. Like stop being so perfect on paper while being so completely not what I want. The party was in full swing when we arrived. All these executives with their perfect wives, everyone looking like they stepped out of a corporate Christmas card. Daniel's boss came over immediately, champagne in hand, going on and on about how Daniel had landed this huge contract, how he was the youngest regional director in company history, blah blah blah. He must have to work twice as hard to get people to look up to him, I heard myself say, giggling at my own joke. The boss's smile froze, and Daniel's hand tightened on my waist. "Lizzie," he whispered, "maybe we should get some water." That just set me off. "What? Afraid I'll tell everyone how you need a step stool to kiss me goodnight?" I was loud enough that a few nearby people turned to look. Daniel's face went red, at least the part I could see without bending down. He tried to guide me toward the bar, probably to get that water, but I was on a roll. Every bitter thought, every mean joke from the group chat, every comparison to Darius, it all came pouring out. "You know what's funny?" I announced to the growing crowd of onlookers. "When we first met, I thought, well, at least he's successful, like that would make up for everything else." I gestured vaguely at all of him, swaying a bit in my heels that made our height difference even more obvious. "Lizzie, please," Daniel said quietly, "you're drunk. Let's step outside." "Oh my God, even when you're trying to be authoritative, I can't take you seriously." I started laughing, that kind of mean, drunk laugh that you can't stop once it starts. Like, how am I supposed to respect someone I literally have to look down at? People were definitely staring now. I could see Daniel's colleagues exchanging glances, their wives whispering behind their hands. But the champagne had unleashed something in me that couldn't be stopped. "You want to know something?" I was practically shouting now. "Every time we take a family photo, every time we go out in public, every time you try to act like some big-shot businessman, I'm embarrassed. Actually embarrassed. Like, how did I end up with the one successful guy in Scottsdale who could qualify as a little person?" Daniel grabbed my arm trying to pull me aside, and that's when I really lost it. I yanked away from him, stumbling a bit in my heels. "Don't touch me. I can't even pretend anymore. Do you know how hard it is to pretend? To act like I'm attracted to you? To laugh at all your little jokes and smile in all your little photos and act like I don't die inside every time someone asks if you're standing in a hole in our wedding pictures?" The room had gone completely silent. Someone tried to turn up the Christmas music to cover the scene, but it just made everything feel more surreal. You know what's really funny? I was crying now, drunk tears smearing my makeup. I never realized until right this second, I never actually respected you. Like, ever. I thought I was just joking around with my friends, just playing along with their comments, but oh my God, it's true. I really don't respect you. Daniel just stood there looking at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not even hurt really, just disappointment. Like he'd finally seen who I really was, and he wasn't even surprised. His boss stepped forward, trying to defuse the situation. "I think maybe we should get you some air, Mrs. No, I'm not done. Everyone here pretends Daniel's so amazing, such a catch, such a rising star. But look at him. Actually, look at him. The shortest executive in the room, probably shops in the teens section, can't even reach the top shelf in our kitchen without help. And I'm supposed to what? Be grateful? Be proud? Be turned on?" That's when Daniel's boss and a few other executives actually had to step in. They started leading me toward the exit while I was still ranting, still spilling years of pent-up resentment. "You want to know the real joke?" I called out as they guided me to the door. "I wasted my hot years on someone who needs a booster seat at business dinners. I could have had anyone. But I chose the safe option, the smart choice, the successful little man who'd give me everything except what I actually wanted." The last thing I saw before they got me outside was Daniel's face as he stared at the floor, his colleagues patting his shoulder while their wives glared at me. He looked small, not just physically, but like he'd somehow shrunk inside himself. In the parking lot, waiting for our driver, the cold air started to cut through the drunk haze, and I realized what I'd just done. But instead of feeling guilty, I just felt relieved. Like I'd finally said all the things I'd been thinking for years, all the things my friends and I joked about in our group chat, all the cruel little thoughts I'd been drowning in wine and in fake smiles. I thought it would feel better, getting it all out. Instead, I just felt empty. And cold. So cold. I woke up the next morning with the worst hangover of my life and about 50 missed calls. Daniel hadn't come home. Instead, there was just a text, "Staying at a hotel, don't call." My head was pounding as I scrolled through my phone, trying to piece together exactly how bad last night had been. First call was to Ashley. She didn't pick up. Neither did Madison or Kylie. Finally, on my fourth try, Madison answered. "Girl, what did you do?" She sounded weird, distant. Not her usual gossipy self. "I mean, I was just saying what we all talk about," I defended myself, wincing at how raspy my voice sounded. "It's not like you haven't said worse in the group chat." "Yeah, but we didn't say it in front of his entire company. My husband is furious. He said I'm not allowed to hang out with you anymore." She actually laughed, but it wasn't her usual laugh. Not that I would anyway. "There's a line, Lizzie, and you didn't just cross it, you nuked it." I tried to scroll through our group chat to show her examples of her own mean comments, but I couldn't find it. They'd removed me. Actually removed me from our years-long group chat. The doorbell rang. It was my mom. Someone, probably Ashley's husband, had called her last night. "Elizabeth Marie," she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. "What have you done?" I tried to explain. About the height difference, about the lack of attraction, about how embarrassing it was to always be the couple that didn't match. But the words sounded hollow now, in the cold light of day, with my mother staring at me like I was a stranger. "That man," she said, her voice shaking, "has given you everything. Everything. A beautiful home, healthy children, financial security, and you humiliated him in front of his entire company because what? He's not tall enough for your Instagram aesthetic. Mom, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. Your father was 5'6", you know that? And he was the best man I've ever known. We raised you better than this." That's when Emma came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. "Where's Daddy?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. "My lawyer will contact you this week. I'm staying with Brad. Kids can stay with you until we figure things out, but I'll pick them up for dinner tonight." Brad, his coworker who lived in that luxury high-rise downtown. The one whose wife had given me that look last night when they were escorting me out. I tried calling my friends again. Ashley finally picked up. "Look," she said, sounding tired. "Marcus showed me all the screenshots." "What screenshots?" "Of our group chat. All those jokes, all those mean comments. The other husbands have them too. They've been sharing them with Daniel for months apparently. Keeping receipts." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, keeping receipts?" "Everything, Lizzie. Every time we mocked his height, every time you drooled over Darius, every time we compared Daniel to taller men, their husbands have been collecting it all. And now," she paused, "now everyone knows what kind of friends we were. What kind of wife you were." The rest of the day was a blur of ignored calls and uncomfortable realizations. The preschool director called to check on the family situation. Apparently Emma had been telling her friends that Mommy thinks Daddy is too small to love. Kylie texted once, "Thanks for ruining everything. Tom's making me go to marriage counseling now. Says he needs to know if I talk about him the way you talk about Daniel." By evening, my social media was a ghost town. People who'd liked every single one of my perfectly posed family photos were now radio silent. A few had unfollowed me completely. Daniel came to get the kids around 6. He looked different. Not defeated like I expected, but lighter somehow, like he'd put down a heavy weight he'd been carrying. "Daddy." Emma ran to him. "Are you coming home?" "Not tonight, princess." He wouldn't look at me. "Go get your brother and your overnight bags." "Daniel," I started, but he cut me off. "Not now, Lizzie. Not ever, actually. You made yourself very clear last night." "I was drunk?" "You were honest." He finally met my eyes, probably for the first time in our marriage. The kids came back down with their bags. Daniel had them both by the hand, looking every bit the short, average dad I'd been so ashamed of. But the way they looked up at him, like he was the tallest person in their world. "The lawyer will call tomorrow," he said as they walked out. "Don't bother coming to the New Year's party at Brad's. Everyone heard what you really think of us little people." I sat alone in our big empty house, surrounded by all the expensive things that were supposed to make up for my superficial disappointment. My phone buzzed one last time. Madison had posted a long apology to her husband on Facebook, tagging all the other wives, talking about toxic friendships and learning to appreciate what really matters. I wasn't tagged. My mom had left a packet of divorce lawyer recommendations on the counter. On top was a post-it note, "Your father would be so disappointed." That's when I finally started crying. Not because I regretted what I'd said, honestly, it was all true. But because I'd somehow lost everything. My friends, my social status, my perfect life. Just because I couldn't keep pretending height didn't matter. The worst part? Darius had already unfollowed me on Instagram. 6 months later, and my life looks nothing like I thought it would. The divorce was quick. Turns out Daniel had been preparing for months. The prenup was solid, and his lawyer came armed with enough evidence of my emotional cruelty that fighting it would have been pointless. I had to move out of our beautiful house in North Scottsdale. Now I'm in this tiny apartment off Camelback, the kind of place I used to drive past and think, thank God I married well. The Range Rover went back to the dealership. I'm driving a used Hyundai now, which is just whatever. My old single friends from before Daniel started coming around again, the ones who'd always said I was crazy to marry down in the looks department. We go out to the same clubs we used to hit up in our 20s. But something's different. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm a divorced mom pushing 30. Or maybe it's just that the guys I'm attracted to, the tall, hot ones I always wanted, they're not exactly lining up to date someone with my baggage. Last week, I matched with this gorgeous guy on Hinge. 6'4", looks like he lives at the gym, the kind of guy I always thought I deserved. We met for drinks at this trendy place in Old Town. First thing he asked, "So why'd your marriage end?" I tried to play it cool, make it sound like mutual growing apart, but he'd heard the story. Turns out it made the rounds in the Scottsdale social scene. "Oh wait, you're the one who went off about her short husband at that Christmas party?" He didn't ask for a second date. The kids spend most of their time with Daniel now. His lawyer made a big deal about my pattern of behavior that could be emotionally damaging to them. The final custody hearing was last month. I walked into the courthouse feeling confident. I'm their mother. But then they played recordings of me at birthday parties, play dates, school events, all these little comments about Daniel's height, all these jokes I'd made in front of the kids. Things I didn't even remember saying. Emma had a dance recital last week. Daniel was there in the front row with his new girlfriend. She's this children's book author, writes about accepting differences or something like that. She's exactly his height, and they look right together, like they fit. She was wearing flat shoes, and I realized it had never occurred to me to do that. I stood in the back, watching them with our kids. Emma ran to them after the show, and I heard her ask, "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy love you anymore?" Daniel just looked at her with those kind eyes I used to find so boring and said quietly, "I don't think she ever did, sweetheart." The truth in those words hit harder than any of the judge's decisions. My old friends, the married ones, they've all disappeared. Their husbands made them choose, and well, Madison's still with her tall husband in their perfect house. Ashley's planning a vow renewal. Kylie posts about growing through what she went through and tags her husband in appreciation posts. The other night, I ended up at this bar in downtown Phoenix. Not my usual scene, but I needed to be somewhere no one knew my story. This guy bought me a drink. Tall, good-looking, exactly my type. We got to talking, and it turned out he was a personal trainer, like Darius. For a moment, I felt that old excitement, that physical attraction I always wanted. Then he mentioned he had a roommate and drove for Uber on the side, and was between gyms right now. I thought about Daniel's black Amex, about the housekeeper he used to pay for, about never having to check prices at Whole Foods, about the college funds for the kids that were already fully funded. The guy asked for my number. I didn't give it to him. My mom still barely speaks to me. She sent me a photo album last week, pictures of her and my dad when they were young. He really was short, I guess I'd forgotten. But in every photo, she's looking at him like he's the tallest man in the room. I tried to remember if I ever looked at Daniel that way. I don't think I did. Sometimes, late at night in my tiny apartment, after another meaningless date or another eve watching my kids run to Daniel's new girlfriend for hugs, I think about what I really lost. Not just the lifestyle or the security or the social status, but the chance to be loved by someone who would have done anything for me. The chance to teach my children that character matters more than appearance. The chance to be a better person than I turned out to be. I saw Daniel at a restaurant last weekend. He was there with the kids and his girlfriend, all of them laughing about something. He looked happy, really happy, in that way that has nothing to do with height or looks or any of the things I'd obsessed over. Emma waved to me, but Lucas pretended not to see me. He started standing up straighter lately, probably because of all those comments I made about his dad's height. Another thing I'll never be able to take back. My lease is up next month, and I can't afford to renew it. The boutique job barely covers my bills, and Daniel's support is just enough to keep me afloat. I scroll through real estate listings in areas I used to turn my nose up at, looking for somewhere that accepts Section 8 housing. Sometimes I catch my reflection in my phone screen while I'm doing this. Still pretty, still tall, still the kind of woman who turns heads. For all the good it does me now. The other day, someone who didn't know my story asked me if I had any advice for single women in the dating scene. I thought about it for a long time. About all the things I thought mattered. Height, looks, physical attraction. About all the things I took for granted. Stability, kindness, genuine love. Yeah, I said finally. Don't be me. They laughed, thinking it was a joke. But somewhere in my overpriced apartment, in a box I still haven't unpacked, there's a wedding photo of me looking down at Daniel with a smile I thought was real at the time. And every night, I look up at my ceiling and wonder if I'll ever be able to look myself in the eye again.